This is the Pick Six Podcast. This is Super Wildcard Weekend Sunday Night Recap Edition.
Part 2.
Saturday Night Recap Edition is in the old feed. That's Will Brinson. That's John Breech. I'm Ryan Wilson. And remember, give us the old thumbs up if you're watching us on the YouTubes at NFL on CBS. And, of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss a show. All right, boys, we're starting in Dallas. Ooh, boy. Who were at one time 7-point favorites during the week against the old Packers there. And all Green Bay did was set a playoff scoring record versus the Cowboys. And Jordan Love on Sunday looked a lot like C.J. Stroud looked on Saturday. And we'll get to the Cowboys at some point this evening. But first, got to start with the winners. And that means Dallas looked lost against Green Bay's offense. And I'll start here. And this is something I tweeted out after the game. The Cowboys and defensive coordinator Dan Quinn had exactly 0 answers when the Packers lined up with 2 tight ends. And that's something the Packers did a lot during the season. Second highest rate in the NFL to the tune of 37% of the time. Something they did at a 48% clip on Sunday. So with tight ends Luke Musgrave and Tyler Kraft, both rookies on the field, Jordan Love, a tidy 7 of 8 with 2 touchdowns, perfect passer rating, and he averaged 16.1 yards per attempt. It gets even worse when Green Bay ran the ball with 2 tight ends, 95 yards, a touchdown, and they averaged 5.3 yards per carry. So much for Dan Quinn's defense. So, Brinson, the Packers have now won 10 of their last 11 games against the Cowboys. That said, how impressive was this victory against the Dallas team that had won 16 straight at home and averaged more than 37 points per game at home this season?
Okay, when did you get an Adderall prescription? Did it involve your True Media prescription or subscription? And no, it was a blitzkrieg of stats. I love it, Wilson. I think the thing for this game is that have you ever seen anything? I've never seen anything like this in terms of what the Packers did offensively. Well, okay, first of all, the old narrative of first time playoff quarterbacks and rookie playoff quarterbacks out the window. Jordan Love, first ever perfect passer rating. CJ Stroud yesterday.
Not a perfect passer rating. Not a perfect passer. It was a perfect passer rating until they decided to try to go to first down on his final throw of the game. It fell incomplete and dropped his rating from 158.3 to 157.2. It cost them the perfection. They didn't have to throw the ball there. And that's okay, but keep going. I just want to make sure.
No, good point. The broadcast definitely said that. It was probably on Peacock. At any rate.
The point was that Sean Clifford came in, and then they had to bring Jordan Love back in. If Sean Clifford had stayed in the game.
So when he left the game, he had a perfect pass.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. That's right. And then because Aaron Jones came back in too, because they were like, oh God, are we going to lose this to the Cowboys? There's a lot to unpack, but I think that the week after Bill Belichick and the Patriots disembark from each other, unencumbered from each other, it's insane to think that before Belichick, we all agree that Belichick, Tom Brady, and the Patriots are the greatest dynasty in the history of sports, right? Do we all agree with that?
Definitely the history of the NFL, but probably sports.
Okay, probably sports,
but definitely
NFL. Before Belichick and Brady came together in New England, and after Belichick and Brady separated in New England, there's this buffer period on each side where the Packers have a franchise quarterback. They had Brett Favre before those guys showed up, and now they got Jordan Love after those guys left. The Packers this is the single greatest run of franchise quarterbacking in the history of professional football, and it's not remotely close. Jordan Love does stuff from arm slots, and the way Jordan Love is awesome. And maybe he's streaky, and maybe he won't end up being a Hall of Famer. But when he plays his best football, dude, you love Jordan Love.
Yeah, but I mean, why are we talking about Hall of Famer? Let's just talk about the game.
Because Favre and Rodgers are Hall of Famers. I'm just saying, this guy is an incredible quarterback when he is playing at his highest level. Now, he's a problem when he's at his lowest level, but most quarterbacks are.
I would just push back on that. He has not been at his lowest. The first half of the season, they started 3-6. And since then, they've been lights out. In fact, he's had the fewest turnover-worthy plays since week 13. Great. I know. I'm just saying the streakiness hasn't really been there. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, no, he had that streak of 4 or 5 weeks He started out hot and got cold. But dude, Brian Gutekunst was asked, do you know if Jordan Love is your quarterback next year? And he didn't have an answer.
I think he has an answer.
Well, now he does. Yeah, dude. Jordan Love is awesome.
Well, a big part of the struggles early, even though the numbers, if you just look at them, didn't necessarily bear it out, was that they were so bad in the first half. They were struggling at the beginning of games, falling behind. And this is all during when they started 2-5, 3-6. So that was part of the trouble. But it's not just Jordan Love. You look at the past few weeks of Packers football, and who's
Aaron
been
Jones.
right there with them? Aaron Jones every single time. He had such a monstrous game today. You look at what he did in week 18 against the Bears, 111 yards. Week 17 against the Vikings in a huge, huge game, 120 yards. The week before that against the Panthers in a game that the Packers almost choked away, which this is almost making fun of the Cowboys, that the Carolina Panthers put up 30 points on the Packers and almost beat them. But Aaron Jones put up 127 yards in that game. And, we're looking at this stat right now on YouTube. Aaron Jones had 3 rushing touchdowns. That is tied for the most rushing touchdowns in a wild card game in NFL history. And so when your rushing attack is working like that, that makes things a lot easier for your quarterback. And Jordan Love was absolutely phenomenal. You look at their first touchdown drive. They went out there. Matt LaFleur went full Zach Taylor. Not to bring the Bengals up, but his strategy, Zach Taylor's is always, we're going to take the ball first and put the other team on its heels because we want to go down and get the first points. Well, Matt LaFleur doesn't usually use that strategy, but he did in Dallas because he felt confident enough that his offense could go out. The vaunted Cowboys defense, guess what? We're going to drive straight down the field. We're going to score on them. And now all the pressure's on them because they're a 7-point favorite. They're playing at home. Mike McCarthy's job is on the line. And what did the Packers do? They drove straight down. Jordan Love went 4 for 4 for 42 yards in the opening drive. They scored a touchdown. And you look at all 3 of their offensive drives that ended in touchdowns in the first half. Jordan Love went 12 of 12 for 152 yards on those 3 TD drives. I mean, it was a clinic out there. LaFleur, I mean, he's also one of those coaches where it was, what was going to happen if Aaron Rodgers left? Is he actually a good coach? And I would say that he has resoundingly made that answer yes. I don't think there's any debate. There was definitely debate when they were 3-6 in November, but
Breech,
I do not think there's
What do you think about this? Was Aaron Rodgers restricting Matt LaFleur's ability to be the best Matt LaFleur could be?
I don't think that's crazy. I think that Aaron Rodgers, he kind of does his own thing. And I mean, look, there was a power struggle that we knew about, that Rodgers wants to call his own plays, that he wasn't happy with the plays that LaFleur was putting out. And Rodgers loves to run plays that break down, and he'll go find his guy, go off script. That's part of what Aaron Rodgers does.
The camera, who knows?
And LaFleur's like, man, just run my offense, please. And Jordan Love's like, yes, sir, I'll do that. And we'll be awesome. So, yeah, I do think that there is definitely some truth to that.
There's something really interesting about that too, though, Wilson. And Wilson, we've talked about Jordan Love as a prospect coming into the NFL, and then like how because at Utah State, he was like, you don't expect him to be the guy that runs the on, to be like, you don't expect him to run an offense like Kirk Cousins. He's too athletic for that. You know what I mean? Like you expect him to go off script a little bit, and he's really done, frankly, the exact same thing that Aaron Rodgers did when Aaron Rodgers started in Green Bay, being the athletic guy and who is capable of going off script if he needs to, but perfectly capable of staying within the game when the offense is perfectly called. And dude, Matt LaFleur pulled Dan Quinn's pants down in this game early on. I mean, they were moving the ball so fast. And conversely, somehow, Joe Barry, with this much maligned Packers defense, I mean, they flipped everything on its head. It felt like the Cowboys were, and we'll get to this later, but in this particular game, it felt like the Packers came in playing with house money, young, loose, confident, not worried about anything. And it felt on the other side of things that Mike McCarthy to be perfectly frank, his butt cheeks were really tight, and he was petrified about losing at home against Green Bay in a home playoff game as the number 2 seed. He never expected to have happen. And somehow the Cowboys offense was so tight. Jair Alexander, great job covering CeeDee Lamb. I mean, just defensively and offensively, everything the Packers did had the Cowboys matched up from Jump Street.
I mean, we'll talk about this in a second. I don't even know if Mike McCarthy he didn't have anything to do with the way Dak played or the way CD and Dak were on the same page.
Early.
I think Dan Quinn, sort of like we talked about with Jim Schwartz yesterday, is the guy in the crosshairs. In terms of Jordan Love, he is probably playing on time better than Aaron Rodgers did early in his career, and maybe even later in his career, because Aaron Rodgers, as Breech sort of noted, was a freewheeling sort of gunslinger, and he did it at a really high level. But Aaron, when you watch Jordan Love, and I actually went back and watched the Bears game this weekend, he throws on time so consistently, and a lot of credit. We talk about this all the time when we talk about these quarterbacks. You have to have a play caller who can dial up the plays and put these guys in position to succeed. And Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst probably don't get enough credit. They're playing with only first and second year wide receivers and tight ends. I talked about them playing with more 2 tight end sets than anyone else, and they win with that, and both running and throwing the ball. Tyler Kroft, who came in for Luke Musgrave when he was banged up earlier in the season, blocking his ass off, and they are doing so many things precisely. And when you see teams that lose, and the Dallas Cowboys are an example of this, that don't do things precisely, you get your asses handed to you. So, Breech, the Cowboys came into this game scoring more points in the first quarter than anyone on planet Earth. they got a big old goose egg hung on them. And one thing I want to mention, and then I want to get your thoughts on this. Brinson talked about Dan Quinn. Here's a little fun fact that Honest NFL tweeted about. And he talks a lot about just X's and O's, but this was a little behind the scenes thing that I didn't even occur to me. When LaFleur scored, when Jordan Love threw that touchdown at the end of the game there to Romeo Doubs when it was 24 points or whatever, right before Sean Clifford came in down at inside the 5-yard line, it felt like maybe rubbing it in, but you could sort of understand it because things were going back and forth at that point. So Honest NFL tweeted that LaFleur was holding a grudge against Dan Quinn because LaFleur was the quarterback's coach in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was the head coach.
That is correct.
And he ended up leaving because he didn't get the OC job. That job went to Steve Sarkisian, Breech. He ended up going to L.A., being the OC for Sean McVay. Next year, the Titans OC, and here he finds himself in Green Bay. So there's perhaps a grudge match of sorts, and he was twisting the old knife into Dan Quinn's back. And Dan Quinn, just like Jim
revenge
had
game?
0 answers.
Yeah, Brinson is our revenge game correspondent.
I missed that revenge game somehow.
That's a deep cut.
Brinson doesn't usually miss revenge games.
I know, that's a good one.
You're paying too much attention to the Browns this past week to dive into, or the Matt Stafford revenge game to dive into this angle.
That's and the Mike McCarthy straight up revenge game against the Packers. But no, Breech, you're right. I mean, Wilson, you're right. When the Falcons, and we were all there in the press box together in Atlanta. You guys remember I saved the Super Bowl. Houston. I saved the Super Bowl in Atlanta. We're in Houston when Kyle Shanahan's Falcons coughed up the lead to the Patriots. Shanahan leaves and goes to San Francisco to take the head coaching job. And that's when LaFleur thought he's going to be promoted to be Dan Quinn's OC. Instead, no dice. Interesting angle, Wilson. I wish I'm kind of like my brain's kind of broken realizing I didn't realize that revenge angle before the game.
You were too busy dancing with your blow up Matt Stafford doll to miss that one.
Matt Stafford played fantastic in this game.
Well, you know what, though? And head coaches, if you were in the NFL, you were a competitive person, and it would not surprise me at all if that was in the back of LaFleur's mind. Like, I want to stick it to Dan Quinn.
It's 100% the back of his mind. Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. And you know what? After we talked about the Browns game last night on Saturday night and kind of started talking about it and why the Browns defense struggle on the road, and they're all these we just kept poking little holes in why they were bad, and maybe we just kind of overlooked it. I actually felt very uncomfortable about the Cowboys game before it kicked off because it did feel like something like that could happen. I mean, my prediction was that this would be a shootout on our bowl prediction show. I thought the Packers would score in the 30s, but that the Cowboys would win. So I think the bigger surprise to me, though, was that the Cowboys offense pulled a total no-show. But
right, you know, I think that's exactly right.
It's at home against Mike McCarthy's old team.
With McCarthy calling the plays.
And we'll get to this. With Mike McCarthy calling plays. And Mike McCarthy.
Before we talk about the Cowboys, let's finish on this thought. Let's talk a little bit more about Jordan Love and how.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
how good can he be? Because he's special. We got caught up in the CJ Stroud stuff, and rightfully so. But it seems like, and Bruce Harry talked about this before the show, and Brinson, you sort of alluded to it early on. Jordan Love wasn't setting the world on fire, and there were concerns about him.
Can I ask you a question, Wilson?
Yeah.
You as our senior draft analyst. You actually are the senior draft analyst at CBS Sports. I'm proud of you.
What's your question?
You have the top pick in the draft. Don't worry about what team it is, but you can have Justin Fields, the number 1 pick of this draft class, or Jordan Love. Who do you take?
Why is Justin Fields in that conversation?
I don't know. You're the Bears. You got Bears, Caleb Williams, or Jordan Love.
Oh, I would even take it a step further.
I was going to point out that Jared Goff.
Let me go back to the 2020 draft class in which Justin Fields was in. Tua, Justin Herbert, or Justin Fields.
That's wrong. Oh, but you don't include Burrow, right?
Just those 3. Burrow's hurt, so we'll just leave him. We'll let him heal.
Wait, or Jordan Love, you mean? Love, Tua or Herbert.
Justin Herbert. Yeah, see, that gets a little spicier. The point is that Jordan Love is playing out of his mind.
The Packers did the right thing. They traded up and got Jordan Love.
At the time, I said they did the right thing. I was all on board. I was a huge Jordan Love guy coming out.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't
I'm saying, like, do you? I mean, like, you should like reverse old takes, expose that, and
it's out there. People want to see it. I have had some misses, but I like Jordan Love. I thought he was in a bad situation. I talked to him at the combine, at the Senior Bowl right after that season. And he admitted, he's like, I tried to do too much. And we see quarterbacks do that. Brock Purdy tried to do too much at Iowa State this last year. So It happens. But again, we live in a world where people don't like to be patient with the quarterbacks. That was the right decision that they made. And Matt LaFleur, to Breech's point, has been vindicated of sorts in a post-Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I was going to say, too, though, like, they trade up to get Jordan Love. If Jordan Love hadn't worked out and they cut him loose after this year, you could still argue it was the right decision because it made Aaron Rodgers win MVP twice.
No one said a word about Trey Lance getting traded.
All I'm saying is I agree with you completely. I think
I'm giving you even a better example. Trey Lance was drafted 3rd overall. No one cares that he got sent to the Cowboys. In fact, he was trending on Sunday because Cowboys fans wanted to see him in the game.
I think if you are, would you rather be the Lions or the Packers in the NFC North moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I know who Breech wants to be. He wants to be his doppelganger, but I love the Lions.
No, I mean, this is not a transition. I'm serious. Like, I think both teams are loaded. I think the Packers' offensive players are really, really good and really, really young.
And they're really young, for sure.
So who'd you rather be?
The Lions.
Not after tonight. Just, like for the next 5 years.
I'm going to roll with Dan Campbell and Chris Spielman. Okay. I'm not going to leave him hanging. I do love me some Jordan Love.
Jordan Love's ceiling is higher than Jared Goff's.
Of course. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that.
Breech, Lions or Packers next 5 years?
Probably the Packers, but it's close. And now we've been talking about how it was the Lions division and this was kind of their coronation by winning the division this year. But now it doesn't feel that way anymore. Now I don't feel like there's such a lock to win it next year or the year after that. And to the commenters, I'm not being held hostage. I'm going to start blinking. I was reading some stats here.
All right, Breech, why don't you turn the conversation to Dak, someone who, for the first time in a long time, didn't throw a bunch of. Thank you, Eric. Didn't lead the league in interceptions like he did a year ago, and he actually was in the MVP conversation, and he admitted that he sucked on Sunday night, which I don't think anyone is going to argue with.
Well, I think a problem is, look, as someone who was forced to watch Andy Dalton for 5 years in the playoffs, is that we've reached Andy Dalton territory where if you're a Cowboys fan, you do not trust Dak Prescott in the playoffs. He is 2-5 in his career. That is the worst playoff record in NFL history by anyone who has at least 5 starts.
What about Andy?
Andy's only got 3 starts.
Oh, he's got 4 the other 2.
He's got 4 starts.
Okay.
AJ McCarron started against your Steelers.
Okay, sorry.
Come on, Wilson. You know that.
My bad.
So, and that's where you are if you're a Cowboys fan. And this was kind of this is the one you had to win. You can't go out and lose this when you're a 7-point favorite, when you have the highest scoring offense in football. You have all your weapons out there. If maybe CeeDee Lamb was injured or if Brandon Cooks didn't play, if you had some built-in excuse that you could use, then great, but they didn't. They were fully healthy and they could not do anything in this game. I mean, we're looking at a first half where they had 4 possessions in the entire half, or 5, but their first 4 went punt, interception, punt, pick 6. That's game. And that's on Dak Prescott. That is all on Dak Prescott. 100%. A little bit on CD Lamb because for whatever reason, they were not on the same page. A little bit, give the Packers defense some credit, but I do think it was more of Dak melting down in the spotlight. He said after the game, like you guys just said, that he should be as much on the hot seat as Mike McCarthy. And that's it. Breech bot 3000 is out of business. I need a new team. Yeah. So it was just ugly. At the end of the first half, there was no way the Cowboys were coming back. It was just, I could have taken a nap in the second half. You guys could have taken a nap. It was over.
Yep.
It was wild to see. Like they were out of the game immediately. And it was game planning because like that pick by Jair Alexander was outstanding. And they put him on CD Lamb and basically said, let's shut him down. Jake Ferguson had a huge day, 3 touchdowns. But I don't know. It was
the Jair pick was a bad decision it was an inaccurate throw by Dak. The next pick 6 that Breech just mentioned was they were running double slants and he threw the ball to CD Lamb, which wasn't necessarily a bad read, except for the fact that Kirby Joseph, whoever was standing there, threw it right to him and hit him in the face. He didn't see him there. That's something that you don't want DTR or Aiden O'Connell to do. And that's like a day 1 minicamp mistake. And then after that, it's a wrap. I mean, Dak plays with confidence. I think he led the team in rushing, and that sort of skewed the rushing stats. But they shut down their ability to have any sort of balance. It certainly helps when you're up 27-0. At one point, we saw Jerry in the first half turn around looking to fire somebody. I don't know if he accomplished
Dak threw 60 passes.
Well, yeah, they were down. They were down all day.
60 is like you're getting your ass kicked. Can I? Do you think that there's any chance this is a weird galaxy brain take, but that the Cowboys were victims of the Eagles' failure? In other words, if the Cowboys had been the 5 seed and were going on the road to play Tampa Bay,
they're worse on the road. They're good at home.
No, I know that, but I'm saying because they're so good at home, because the Eagles completely pooped their pants and gave the Cowboys the division, and because the Cowboys was like, you're 7-point favorites at home. Like it was like Mike McCarthy was like, it was almost like he was doing a really good job coaching the team. And then the Eagles melted down. The Cowboys stole the division, and all of a sudden it became, well, Mike has to win this game, or else he's getting fired. And if you heard Jason Garrett in the pregame for Lions Rams, that man is the most milquetoast human being on the planet. And he basically inferred that Mike McCarthy is fired. And he's someone who's been fired unexpectedly or sort of unexpectedly in a post Jerry. Like if somebody's going to know if somebody knows what it's like to be fired by Jerry Jones, it's Jason Garrett. And he seemed to imply that Mike McCarthy is.
What do you think of that conspiracy theory, Breech, about the Eagles?
I think if you would have sat down Mike McCarthy a week ago and said, do you want the 5 seed and go on the road and play the Buccaneers, or do you want to play the Packers at home, who just got shredded by Nick Mullins 2 times in 3 weeks? I think he's picking the Packers defense and saying, I think we can put up 500 yards and 45 points against them, and I would prefer to play Jordan Love, who's in a first career playoff start, because historically, before this weekend, when CJ Stroud and Jordan Love both went off, quarterbacks in their first career playoff starts generally play pretty badly. So I think he actually would have picked the Packers.
You know what else, Breech?
Embarrassing.
7 seeds, 0-6 coming into this game.
0-6.
18-0 at home for the Cowboys. 8-0 this year.
Should Mike McCarthy? What's going to happen to Mike McCarthy, Wilson?
Before we do that, I'm going to read you some quick stats. Then we'll take a break, and Brinson will tell us Mike McCarthy's future. Can you imagine Brinson being in control of your future, Breech?
No.
The Cowboys have now failed to reach a conference championship game in 13 straight playoff appearances. They've lost 8 times in the first game of the postseason, going back to 1996. And they are now 5-13 in the postseason since 1996. And that is the Jimmy Johnson line. They were 31-18 prior to that. So just something to think about if you are a Cowboys long-suffering Cowboys fan. But
And
after
they've now made the playoffs, 13 times without making it to the conference title game, which is the longest streak in NFL history.
Wonk, wonk.
Ever since Jerry made a deal with his higher power.
After the break, Brinson will tell you, Breech, if the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys will be Deion Sanders, the new offensive coordinator will be Michael Irvin. Right after this.
It's
If I told you, Wilson, that this was the most painful podcast, if you're 35 years podcasting with me, would that be enough for you to fire me?
I don't. Here's the thing, though. That's
Jerry
like
Jones said that about this loss.
But let me put it in context. That's like Breech going on an all-time Breechian bender, and Breech in this role is Dan Quinn, which means he would have to be elevated. You can't promote Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn actively acted like he wanted to get the big man fired.
I'm just saying, if Jerry Jones comes out and says after this loss, this humiliating 48-32, which wasn't even that close loss to the Packers,
Let me read us a little something for you.
Go ahead.
So this is from after the Week 18 game, and Jerry was asked after the Commanders win, would McCarthy be back for a 5th season? We'll see how each game goes in the playoffs. And then he had to scramble to qualify. He said, in my Brinson voice doing Jerry, I was a little surprised. I don't know how it could be any clearer. Coach McCarthy is under contract for next year, so that's not an issue. Secondly, I could not be more pleased with what he's done and how he's coached. So proceed.
Jerry called it the most painful, quote, the most painful, end quote, playoff loss in his entire time owning the Cowboys.
Do you think that's true, Breech? I would imagine he's had more painful losses.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, we can.
No, I believe he said it. I don't know if that's the most painful loss.
Right. It's the most recent. The last 3 years.
I can name other Packers losses that are more painful. Is he kidding? 34-31 when Aaron Rodgers drove him down in like 60 seconds. That had to be more painful.
That's
Come on,
true.
Jerry.
Here's the issue for Mike McCarthy. There's several. One, his last 3 losses.
The Dez Bryant catch game was against the Cowboys and Packers. That's
way
2
more
Packers
painful.
games that are higher
Thank you.
on the painful scale.
Calling BS on you, Jerry.
I can name Seahawks games that are worse than this Packers game. But the last 3 losses in the playoffs for Mike McCarthy, and whether we all try to be reasonable and say we should judge a coach not by their, one game, small sample playoff stuff, but that's the reality of the NFL. There's the Dak slide, refs screw up, Mike McCarthy making the crazy hands excuses thing against the Niners. The following year, when he had Zeke snap the ball to Dak, Zeke gets obliterated. And then this year, where this team that is the number 2 seed in the NFC and fully capable of winning the Super Bowl gets obliterated by Jordan Love and a bunch of guys that Jerry Jones literally, in terms of like Aaron Jones is a Jordan Love. Jordan Love, he knows. Aaron Jones, a Cowboys killer. His splits for his career, it's Cowboys are a joke. But Romeo Doubs, Jerry Jones doesn't know half the guys in the Packers depth chart at wide receiver and tight end.
All right,
so the
let's
last
get to
3
get to the bottom
playoff
line.
losses.
What's going on with Mike McCarthy? Is he going to keep his job?
Yeah, he's fired as hell, dude.
All right, on a scale, give us some odds.
I would be.
Give us some Brinson odds.
I would say that Mike McCarthy fired is minus 250, and Mike McCarthy keeping his job is 3-1. That's where I'm at on this one. I think it's obvious.
Breech.
If this were last offseason, I think he would have a chance. But with all the coaching talent out there, whether it's Belichick, whether it's Mike Vrabel, Jim
Mike
Harbaugh,
Tomlin.
you just have these big names out there, and Jerry Jones loves a splashy hire. And look, you think Bill Belichick's team would fall behind 48-16 in a playoff game and sleepwalk through an entire first half of play? You You
They
can
slept
overlook
for
a team.
season.
There's trap games in the regular season where you overlook a team. I get that. It's 17 games. It's tedious. That can't happen in the playoffs. You cannot have a trap game in the playoffs. It's survive and advance. You're out if you lose. He's done. I cannot see him surviving.
Jerry Jones literally hired Belichick's mentor, Bill Parcells, at the exact same point, really, of his career as Belichick's out with the difference being that
this.
Yeah,
the man averaged over 37 points a game at home.
I'm not saying he should be fired. I'm saying he will be fired. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm sort of indifferent, and I'm probably higher.
Jerry should have fired Wade Phillips for Chad Gailey, but I'm
higher on McCarthy now than I was a year ago, and I think he actually exceeded my expectations once they got rid of Kellen Moore. So I give him credit for that. But every playoff loss is more demoralizing than the one that preceded it. Feels like.
I think I'll go counter to my argument before, but I think that Dan Quinn's probably out there Dan Quinn's spending a lot of his mental time thinking about the Seahawks. And maybe that caused the defense not to be as good.
Don't make excuse for Dan Quinn. That defense got their asses kicked.
They got their asses kicked. That's all I'm saying. Is like Mike McCarthy's
Dan Quinn knew that how the Packers did.
All I'm saying is
Packers didn't do anything unusual. They had no answers.
Mike McCarthy didn't go out there and like poop his pants. Dak was terrible and Dan Quinn was terrible.
Yeah, let me ask you that, Breech. If Matt LaFleur's calling plays for Dak Prescott, Matt LaFleur's getting fired too, it feels like.
Matt LaFleur, if he calls plays like, wait, what?
If he were calling plays Sunday night in that game instead of Mike McCarthy, there was nothing he could do because Dak was that bad. That's my point.
I mean, there was a situation where you're down 14-0, you're at the Packers 42-yard line, and you punt. I mean,
that's
those are the things that we're talking about.
Dude, Dak made some bad throws. He missed Jalen Tolbert wide open on what would have been an easy touchdown on the left side. Late. I mean, there's a bunch of Dak played terrible. Dan Quinn wasn't. I mean, excuse me. Mike McCarthy wasn't like great, but this was like what?
How do you know? I mean, Dak played...
all I'm saying is that this game is going to be an indictment of Mike McCarthy. Is what I'm saying. That's my take.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think it's unfair to heap blame on Mike McCarthy. I'm not a Mike McCarthy stan, as the kids say, but it's just, I mean,
I was saying he didn't do anything exceptionally dumb or bad that was obvious to us.
He coached better in this game than he did in the Lions game that they should have lost.
Yeah. But that's my point. Is the reality is he is going to take the blame for this, and as Breech pointed out, in an offseason with Harbaugh and Belichick out there, like if Belichick can make it known to Jerry Jones in 15 seconds, if he hasn't already, which he would have already done, that he is interested if Jerry Jones wants to make a change. As in, Jerry Jones is fully aware right now, and before he spoke to the media tonight, that if Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones reads Pro Football Talk, and Mike Florio has been hammering his keyboard talking about how Mike McCarthy, if he lost to the Packers at home, which we didn't think would happen, might be a candidate to be replaced by Bill Belichick. So if all those parties want that to happen, it's not that far-fetched for it to happen. And Mike McCarthy pooped the bed against the Packers at home, and now this is a prime Jerry Jones firing spot.
Breech,
if you are drinking every time Brinson says pooped something, you are wasted right now, and I am sorry. I should have brought my shot glass. I will just say real quick. I will say this real quick when it comes to, because look, Greg Olson was saying this on the telecast that you can't fire Mike McCarthy. He's done, who are you going to replace him with? He's done so well. He's got the most wins over the past 3 seasons without getting to a conference title game, which is negative, but you can't take those regular season wins away. And how are you going to prove? I think at the end of the day, for Jerry Jones, who is 81 years old, it comes down to this. Who gives me the best shot of winning a Super Bowl next year? I don't care about my regular season wins as long as they get me the playoffs. And once I'm in the playoffs, who gives me a better shot? The guy who is 1-3. What is he? He's 1-3 since he took McCarthy's 1-3 with the Cowboys in the playoffs. Or do I want the guy who goes to the Super Bowl almost every year? And somebody did mention that, yes, the Bills blew out the Patriots the last time Belichick was in the playoffs, but the Bills were a big favorite in that game. Nobody expected the Patriots to win. This is not the same thing where the Cowboys were a huge favorite. This was a meltdown. This was a failure on every level for Dallas.
I'll just say this one last time, and then you guys can tell me who you think is the best. Number one, you only get one answer. And this, again, I'm just quoting Jerry Jones last week. Coach McCarthy is under contract for next year. That's not an issue. I couldn't be more pleased with what he's done and how he's coached. So he'll be asked about those comments, and you can say the blowout changed his mind. I get that. All right, Breech, who is the one and only coach to save Mike McCarthy from himself?
Who would I take?
Yeah.
I think it would be Belichick. I think you're staring out your window. Jones is going to want to win the Super Bowl next year to a very small window. You're looking at 1 to 3 years. It needs to be right now. And I think if you're in the win now mentality, you're probably going with Belichick.
If you could bet Bill Belichick to be the next Cowboys coach, go bet it.
Okay.
Brinson here.
To Belichick.
What do you think, Wilson? You don't clearly.
Who do you think is the next Cowboys coach?
You think it's McCarthy? He stays, doesn't he?
Oh my God!
I think McCarthy stays.
How did you morph into a McCarthy stand?
I'm
You know what? You should probably take our.
Jerry Jones has never lied to me.
3,000 is now Wilson bot
Jerry
3,000.
Jones has never lied to me, Breech.
Welcome to the club, Wilson.
Big Mac bot 3,000.
I think Mike McVay will be a much better coach than Bill Belichick there. But
You
that'd
should
be
you
I'll
should
vote-
take the second break now and just
I'll vote Vrabel.
roll on.
And Belichick will bring McDaniels with him. There'll be 2 peas in a pod. Boom.
Josh McDaniels. All right, before we take a
Good
break,
offensive
though,
coordinator, bad head coach.
I'll start with Breech here so Brinson can collect his thoughts about his favorite.
Let's take a break and let me
NFL.
cry and we'll talk about
No,
Lions
that's
and
fine.
Rams.
I'm gonna get Breech's thoughts and then we'll take a
Okay.
break because Breech is I'll just say he's a little less loquacious than some other people in this podcast, so he won't take it.
Whoa.
All right, Breech. Jared Goff.
You think I won't talk after Breach is done?
Did Jared Goff quiet the doubters, Breech? Because producer Harry was taking some shots at game manager Jared Goff early in the fourth quarter when the wheels were a little shaky on the old Lions bus. Great drive, the penultimate drive that got them. Actually, the last drive when they were able to convert, he made that big throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown, calmed down, and Chris Collinsworth talked throughout the telecast about how Jared Goff was down in the dumps when he got sent from LA to Detroit. Understandable, but Dan Campbell and had his back and sort of got him back on track. How impressed were you with Jared Goff's performance?
I will say this, that he started off hot and he would have lost the entire crowd. He would have been kicked out of the city if Detroit had lost this game, because you look at what happened after the Rams cut the lead to 24-20. The Lions got the ball. They punted. Then the Rams go down, get a field goal. Now it's 24-23. The Lions get the ball. They punt again. And so everybody's just thinking, oh my God, can Jared Goff just do something, please? And then even when you get to the end there and they decide to, and Jared Goff throws the first down on 2nd and 9, that was it. That was the throw that sealed. Now he is a hero. Now he is a savior. If you win your city's first playoff game in 32 years, there's only going to be positive memories associated with you for the rest of the time. If Jared Goff does not play another season in Detroit, he'll be remembered as a hero. Brinson,
Do you want to bounce back, Brinson?
I thought we were taking a break after Breach.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to weigh in.
No, I was kidding.
All right, so we'll take a break, and when we come back, before we talk about Matthew Stafford, we'll turn the conversation to the Rams and we'll talk about the Lions actually after the break, and then we'll get to the misuse of timeouts by Sean McVay before we talk about Matthew Stafford's great performance.
Miami of Ohio.
We'll talk about all that right after this.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
So, Brinson, at the half.
Can I address something beforehand? I love this Lions team. Like, this was a real Sophie's choice for me. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's my guy, but I hope the Lions win the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, who admittedly, Wilson, you were early on, but you were right. He is fantastic. Jahmyr Gibbs, incredible. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta has no business being out there, and he's just grinding it out there because Campbell's his coach. Ali McNeil, my guy on defense. I love this Lions team. The Stafford Lions matchup was something I really wanted to see. I thought Stafford played incredible, and Goff was just as good. And this came down to, as I said on HQ multiple times with you, Wilson, on Saturday, or maybe in the pregame when we were doing the pick show, who would be more aggressive coaching, and that might flip the game. And I think that is what flipped this game. I thought Stafford hit his hand on McNeil Alim's helmet, and that cut it open. He didn't care. He played through it. Goff went 22 of 27 for 277 yards and a touchdown, no picks. He was tremendous. This game clearly meant a ton to him. The GM, the head coach of the Rams, they dumped him for Stafford and won a title and shipped him to Detroit where Stafford couldn't win. And he's here with a winner going to the divisional round. Stafford, I mean, this mattered to him. Stafford taking his place, it mattered to him. And he played like it did. He won this game for them. Goff is awesome. I think the difference in this game, a 24-23, fantastic NFC wildcard matchup, was coaching. Sean McVay was scared, and Dan Campbell wasn't. Sean McVay is a much better offensive mind than Dan Campbell is. But Dan Campbell is a balls to the wall players coach of all-time players coach who has taken this Detroit Lions team that was complete crap for forever, despite good job by Jim Schwartz and Matthew Stafford, and turned them into like the new favorites in the NFC North for years to come.
All right, Breech, tell me what you think about this. 14-10 early in the second quarter, and to piggyback off what Brinson's talking about in terms of what Dan Campbell's done all year in terms of being aggressive. 3rd and 3 from the +4 yard line. They get to the 2. John Skipper comes in, or Dan Skipper. He is eligible as a fat guy, and they go for it on 4th and 1 from the 2 yard line, and Goff throws to Laporta. And not only, here's the other thing that I meant to mention with the previous game we talked about. We sort of talked about Matt LaFleur doing a great job. And then yesterday we talked about Bobby Slowick doing a great job scheming them open. Ben Johnson, great job. Michael Hoyt was in coverage on Sam Laporta. Michael Hoyt is an edge rusher who looks like he probably works at a bowling alley part-time. Fantastic season, but he does drop into coverage a lot for a big guy. He was in coverage on the TD pass to Sam Laporta on 4th down. That makes it 21-10.
How was that midfield fade call to Amon St. Brown? It was like on the third and short where they ran like a goal line fade at midfield. Incredible design.
So that touchdown Breach made it 3 touchdowns on the first 3 drives. And that I made a note there because this is what it reminded me of, because I told you guys this when we were debating why in God's name would you go for 2 from the 7 yard line in that Cowboys game. And I said, I don't think that game matters. I think Dan Campbell is sending a message to his team that we're going to roll with by being aggressive. And that's sort of what I got from that. What'd you think of that play?
I didn't think that was necessarily what I took from it. I think that Dan Campbell watched his defense get absolutely gashed up on the Rams' first 2 possessions, with Stafford going up and down the field. I think their first drive, which ended in a field goal, went for 69 yards. Then they had the touchdown drive for 72 yards where Nakua got the 50-yard touchdown. So when you see your defense has no hope of stopping the Rams offense to that point, you're thinking, wow, we probably need to put up as many points as possible. And that means going for it on 4th and 1 from the Rams too. I mean, that's obviously Campbell's, he's aggressive. That's his nature. We've seen it all year. So there was never, I mean, I thought he was going for this the whole time, and I thought it was the right decision, and he made it pay off. And the fact that Laporta, who was carted off the freaking field last week, 7 days later he couldn't even walk off a football field in week 18. And he not only did he play, but he catches the touchdown pass. That was insane. So yeah, I mean, I thought he made the right decision, but and we'll talk about the McVay versus Campbell and I guess the coaching difference, but I didn't really think, because the difference in the game was the red zone. The Lions got in the red zone 3 times. They scored 3 touchdowns. The Rams got in the red zone 3 times. They scored 0 touchdowns. They settled for 3 field goals. But looking at those field goals, I only think there was one instance where Campbell might have gone for it. I think he also kicks the field goals on 2 of the 3 situations, which were 4th and 8s. But the other one where I just wasn't sure.
Are you saying if you flip McVay and Campbell?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's fair. That's fair.
So I thought there was only one instance where Campbell would have gone for it. So I don't think that McVay on those, forget the play calls that got us to that situation. I'm just talking about that actual play. I didn't think that McVay played
the final punt though.
Are we already there? Should we talk about it?
Here, let's hold on. Let's back up. Let's start here.
Well, real quick. I mean, the Rams averaged 7.
Well, let's start with the timeouts, and we'll get to that. So let's start with the timeouts. So Sean McVay called his first timeout of the second half with 13:30 to go in the third quarter.
Not good.
Yeah, that's terrible.
By the way, if you ever have the prop of which team's going to call a timeout first, always bet the Rams. It hits every time. I'm not even kidding.
You're not even kidding. The second timeout they called, literally 15 game minutes later, 13:47 to go in the fourth quarter. So they have one left. So they already have their back against the wall. So one timeout, and go ahead, Brinson, with that last punt.
Well, I mean, the timeout thing, oh my God. The timeout thing drives me nuts because it's hard to explain. Like, you have Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. How is this an issue where you need to use the timeouts? At the same time, like, you trust McVay to make sure you get the right play in. So if you do use the timeouts, it's one thing. But you get there and you're down 1 point, right? Yep. And you decide on the 44. So we're looking at a 61-yard field goal. Third and 14 on the 44. They let Stafford throw it, and then they punt. And I think at that point, given you got Aaron Donald, and that's great, and Raheem Morris has been awesome, but man, the Lions are so aggressive. And
I'll say this, though, sorry to interrupt you, but that play was because Aiden Hutchinson got held. Another sort of bold move by Dan Campbell, not to let it be 4th and 6, make it be third down.
Yeah, Dan Campbell took the penalty. That's right. Yeah.
So that's why they moved back.
You're right, because I think actually, so in the moment I was thinking about this. I think if he declines a penalty, Sean McVay's not going for it. He's kicking.
No, he's kicking it. That's right. Yeah,
100%. And they're probably making the field goal from there.
Breech, is Maher making that?
Maher's making a 51-yard field goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, but Sean McVay's definitely kicking at 4th and 4, right?
Yes,
that I agree with.
Yeah, probably.
For 51. Yeah, McVay loves to kick, especially down 1.
He went for it on 4th down earlier, 4th and 6, 4th and 5.
I was surprised he went for that.
But I thought, to your point, Wilson, I'm glad you interrupted me because I think that this coaching psychological stuff here was huge. The penalty's called. It can either be 4th and 4, 51-yard field goal for the Rams who are down 1. And Dan Campbell can say, all right, I know Sean McVay's going to kick. And I can let him kick and go up 2 points, maybe, or I get the ball back and it's over. Or I can pull him back there. He's probably not going to, like, McVay should have played like a draw to go for it on 4th down or to kick after that. And instead he played to get it or punt. You know what I mean? Like, McVay is so notoriously conservative that Campbell knew he would pull him back. He'd either try to get the first down or he'd punt and let his defense play ball. And I think Campbell won the psychology there in terms of coaching.
And one other thing, because it was such a crazy situation that they were there, because you only have one timeout left. So the situation is, it is 4th and 14. You were at the Lions 44-yard line. You can go for it. You can punt. You can try the field goal. And granted, Brett Maher has not been the greatest kicker. I mean, the Rams freaking cut the guy earlier this season before bringing him back. His percentage during the regular season with LA in 2023 was 74%. So not entirely accurate. We all remember his playoff meltdown with the Cowboys, but that was mostly extra points that he struggled with. But here's the one thing with Brett Maher. He is literally the best kicker in NFL history when it comes to kicking field goals from 60 yards or longer. He has made 4 of them. Nobody else in NFL history has made 4. Not Justin Tucker, not Sebastian Janikowski. And not only has made 4 of them, but he's 4 for 4. He's never missed. So he's the only kicker with multiple field goal attempts from 60 yards or more who has made 100% of his kicks. And so if I know my kicker can hit that, if I saw him do it at least once in warmups, I am setting him out there because I only have one timeout left. And if he misses that, if they get a first down, the game's over anyway. So if you punt and they get a first down, the game's over. If you miss the field goal and they get a first down, it doesn't matter where on the field it is. It's not like the Lions are going to drive down and go get a touchdown because you missed this field goal. It doesn't matter that they're closer to the end zone because 1 first down, 2 first downs, that's going to end the game. So I probably would have tried the field goal. That's my field goal rant.
No, I mean, I think that Sean McVay is notorious for playing scared, is not going to be aggressive late in games. And I think, I think this came down to who was more aggressive in coaching. Dan Campbell was, Sean McVay wasn't. Stafford played awesome. The Rams skill guys played awesome. The Lions defense was okay at times. The Rams defense was okay at times. Rams defense was great in the second half. Lions defense made some stops. First half was a shootout. It came down to who wanted to be more aggressive, and Dan Campbell was.
I just don't think that it's fair to say that Campbell was way more aggressive than McVay. They both went for it on 4th down once. They both got it. And again, if we flip the situation, I didn't see a ton of places where Campbell would have done something differently than what McVay did. I think McVay made one questionable decision. It's the 4th and 14. But what do you think Dan Campbell does there? Do you think he goes for it on 4th and 14? Do you think he tries the field goal? Do you think he punts it?
I'll tell you exactly what he does. So, because I was looking this up, and it sort of supports your point. And by the way, if Dan Campbell hadn't gotten the decision to throw it with Jared Goff to Sam Laporte, if that falls incomplete, people are whinging about that because you only had 1 yard to go. But early in the third quarter, they have 4th and 16. The Lions do from their 35 or from the Rams 35, which is a similar situation to what would have happened had Dan Campbell declined the penalty when the Rams were there later in the game. And they send out Michael Badgley to try a 54-yarder, and he absolutely smokes it. Who, by the
way, had a 43% career percentage from beyond 50, so it was not a sure thing at all.
So Dan Campbell took some gambles, and they paid off in those instances. And I think, to Brinson's point, it maybe if you were moving back to 4th and 14, you run 2 plays to try to get that yardage, not all for nothing.
Run a draw to Ronnie Rivers or whoever, and get it. But now look, just to give Breech credit here, I think that to me this game was 2 teams that played awesome, and it came down to a couple of decisions. It's the opposite of the first game. Right, where the Packers deep pants the Cowboys, and it was an embarrassment. This was just it's a 1-point game in a crazy NFC matchup between Stafford and Goff, 2 guys who were traded for each other. It's everything you could have asked for. Somehow it didn't go over, even though it was a shootout in the first half. And I will put blame on McVay for the late game aggressiveness, but I agree with you that ultimately this was just a really good playoff game. That's all it was. It's I'm not going to take away, wow, Sean McVay can't be a great coach in the NFL, or, oh, Dan Campbell is the future of coaching in the NFL. To me, it's just, this is a great wildcard weekend matchup. And it was, look, the Rams 7.7 yards per play to 6.1 for the Lions. 425 yards to 334. To Breech's point, they executed it in the red zone better than the Rams did. It was just a good game. That's all. I don't know.
What we desperately needed after Super Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer, wasn't it?
You know what? Even though there was a bunch of blowouts, I thought it was entertaining enough because the Texans, it was a surprising blowout.
Stroud.
And then you get the 4th coldest game in NFL history. It's fun to watch, and that when helmets are shattering on the field, that's fun.
And by the way,
and Peacock jokes and Jason Garrett jokes on Twitter.
The number of young players that are balling out. You talked about C.J. Stroud. Puka Nacua went for 181. Romeo Dobbs went for 151. So we have these young guys absolutely balling. There's Puka there. Great job, producer Harry. Surpassed DK Metcalf for most receiving yards in a playoff game by a rookie. Jeremy Maclin on the list, and of course Keith Jackson out of Oklahoma.
Jeremy Maclin, most number of receiving yards by any rookie receiver under Andy Reid in NFL history.
Josh Reynolds with 75 yards in the first quarter.
Revenge
game.
That was an absolutely.
Revenge game.
I will say that, I mean, curmudgeon style, but I think 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, better than 2-2-2.
I like the 2-2. I don't love the 2-2-2, but I like it better for planning purposes in terms of what we have to do at 11:30 at night. But I take your point. It's a lot easier than 16-0, like
that's
Sundays. All right. Anything else? Brinson, do you want to give a heartfelt love letter to Matthew Stafford? Producer Harry is on fire right now.
Well, my Brinson VP is, of course, Matthew Stafford. Can I do that? No, I can't. Right?
Yeah, why not? It's yours. You can do with what you wish.
Look at this guy. First loss in the playoffs with the Rams came to the Lions, with whom he'd never won a playoff game. He played awesome. He busted his hand open against Lee McNeil's helmet. And I think that actually, you know what? I want to do dual MVPs, Goff and Stafford.
You can't go dual MVP.
Sure, I can. Look,
participation trophy.
The game was really entertaining. Both guys, but I feel like both guys. How often do you see? There's never been a playoff game in NFL history when two guys who were traded for each other played against each other in the game in the postseason. I think he's neat.
Harry's on a heater, baby.
I know. Harry's in his feels.
What a great graphic. That's going to give that I'm going to print that out, and that's going to be the Valentine.
I'm going to send that to HR.
3-year-old's going to give out to everyone.
Harry took time out to make a graphic making fun of me for Matthew Stafford. Look, Harry doesn't have a real quarterback under center.
Just stay on topic. Leave Harry alone, please.
And
continue.
so, look, Stafford and Goff go head to head. This game is built up as the ultimate double revenge game. It's never happened before in playoff history where two guys who were traded for each other go head to head. And they both played awesome. Like Goff is 22 of 27 for 277 and a touchdown and led all the drives. Like even if the Gibbs, I think, had a rushing touchdown, Montgomery had a rushing touchdown. Those were all Goff led drives. He and Dan Campbell closed that game out. He deserves every bit of praise he gets, but so does Matthew Stafford. 25-36, 367, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, while playing with a completely busted hand that was bleeding all over the place and swollen, and not like a decent running game, but not great. Thrown to a rookie receiver and Cooper Kupp, who was smothered the entire time. They were both awesome. Shout out to those two quarterbacks. My dual MVPs.
All right, Breech, see if you can top that one.
My MVP
Better be for the Packers-Cowboys game.
Not from the Packers-Cowboys game, Brinson. I have dual MVPs.
Oh, geez.
It is Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. No, I'm just kidding. My MVP is one Daniel Allen Campbell. It is the head coach of the Detroit Lions. We all had so much fun joking about him biting kneecaps off back when he got hired in 2021. He has absolutely turned this franchise around. And to see him lead this team to not only division title, but their first playoff win in 32 years. I can tell you that I don't get emotionally attached in the week-to-week stuff really with the Bengals side of stuff anymore, but when they beat the Raiders for their first playoff win in 30 years, 2 years ago, I teared up. I mean, it was so emotional to see that happen. And so I know exactly how Lions fans feel. I know that the 3-decade wait, you get to a point where you don't ever think it's going to happen. They had never hosted a playoff game at Ford Field, which opened in 2002. They had never won in the wild card round. And it always seems like the NFL gods are conspiring against them. All the games they lost on bad calls. We all remember that the Cowboys playoff game from a few years ago where they picked up an interference flag. And there's just all these things where it feels like the Lions were just meant to lose. I mean, we saw the questionable call in the game tonight against the Rams with the offsides right before the halftime. And they say, no, it was on the Lions. It should have been on the Rams. And so just wild that Dan Campbell was able to do all this in 2 years and for this team to get that win. I think this was the monkey they needed to get off their back. And we were talking about comparing the Texans to the Bengals. I think the Lions are the 2021 Bengals, where now that that's out of the way, and now that you got the mental barrier of, okay, we can win a playoff game, now it's off. The governor's off, and you can speed your way to the Super Bowl.
I like it. All right, I'm going to go a little bit off script here, and we've talked
Bill
about
Belichick.
Bill Belichick is the real winner. Mike McCarthy is the real winner because now he can go on vacation if he wants to. I'm going to go. I mean, the Packers, Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur are the obvious selections there, but that offense was incredibly balanced. I'm going with Aaron Jones.
Ooh.
Aaron Jones averaged 5.6 yards per carry, had the 3 touchdowns that Breech mentioned earlier, went for 118, his 4th straight game of over 100 yards going back to the end of the regular season there. And the Cowboys had no answers. They had no answers for the run game. They had no answers, obviously, for the pass game, and their offense no-showed. Aaron Jones is going to be critical to whatever's next, and whatever's next, I do believe, since they're the 7th seed, it's the San Francisco 49ers, and that's going to be a fun matchup of two brainiacs dialing up plays against each other, against two surprisingly evenly matched offenses. The defenses may be the difference, but we can get to that next week. But for now, Aaron Jones, you are my
What's
MVP. Congratulations, sir.
Well, and that game is the Saturday night primetime game on Fox. Packers at 49ers.
Breech, what are the let's do this in 90 seconds. What are the schedule ramifications of what might happen on Monday? And what are the early odds for the games that are set? I'll do the Brinson or wins over Brinson odds if you want.
Only one game is set, and that is Packers 49ers. I have not looked at the odds, so I don't know what it is.
I haven't either.
It's at least
I think
Cowboys
I think it's 8. I think it's 8.5.
Oh no, it's 4.5.
No, if the Cowboys were favored by 7,
That's
it's gotta
wins
be
over
more than
Wilson. I'm telling you,
It-
you guys-
4.5.
wins
It
over
was
Wilson.
4.5.
that.
It was,
What you say?
I would say
Huh?
8.5.
Yeah, I'll half point. I'm going to go 9 just to prices
Yeah,
right.
it's
Brinson.
it's 4. If it's 4.5, Wilson.
I'm telling you, just wins over Wilson. It is 4.5.
If it's
I'm basing my guess off if the Cowboys were 7, that the 49ers are higher up in the power
if
rankings.
it's 4.5, the Packers are
the
just
odds
winning.
makers use.
I might pick
Is
the
it
Packers to win
just
that
maybe
game.
it's 10?
What are the other two?
Only one
Well,
of us.
the
is
other ones
4-0
aren't
against-
set, which
yeah.
I'll explain in a second after you find
It's
this point.
10. It is 10.
It is 10. Wow.
Only one of us is 4-0 against the spread. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
I think
Ooh,
Brinson and I 3-1.
the total of this
Wilson.
game. Total of this game. What do you think it is? For reference, the Cowboys and
48
Packers.
and a half.
What's that,
48 and a half.
Wilson?
48.6.
It's 50.5.
I
Wow.
won.
That is big.
I won.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, so everybody, if you're watching these Monday night games, if the Bills win and beat the Steelers, then they will host the Chiefs on Sunday, January 21st at 6:30 p.m. on CBS, and the Texans will play the Ravens in Baltimore in the Saturday afternoon game. If the Steelers somehow win, Wilson Steelers steal the win, they will play the Ravens on Sunday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. And in that case, the Texans will play at Kansas City in the Saturday afternoon game. And then the late Monday night game, which is Tampa Bay and Philadelphia, that one's easy. The winner plays the Lions in Detroit.
Man,
Do
the
you-
Lions
do you
suddenly
think
looking like
that
a
the-
conference championship team.
Wilson, you're in upstate New York. Do the Bills and Steelers play on Monday?
You know, it's funny. It's sunny. It's been sunny all day at my house, which is rarely sunny this time of year.
Really?
And saw our buddies Lee J. Douzable and Jeremy St. Louis out in the feet of snow today, just 3 hours west of here. So I don't know. In fact, I'll tell you, I got an alert on my phone this afternoon at 3 p.m. And it said that the state has issued a commercial vehicle ban on I-90, which is the thruway that runs to Buffalo from exit 46, which is Rochester, was about an hour away to the Pennsylvania state line. Local travel bans may exist. Do not attempt to travel. So that was 3 p.m. today. So they were still seriously concerned about the weather. So
A Tuesday playoff game would be some issues for scheduling.
yeah, they did it during COVID.
Now, I think the
People got
governor
screwed.
said today that it's pretty locked in that they're going to play Monday, unless something absolutely bonkers happens.
If for some reason it's a holiday, if you're at home, I hope you're watching on television. If you are somewhere streaming, make sure to check out Paramount Plus.
Okay.
That's
Do
all I
that.
got.
All right. Happy birthday, Breech, again. We'll get them all in, sort of the times we missed in the previous years.
Wilson.
All right. That's it. That's a
It's not my
wrap.
birthday anymore, anyone. Don't listen to him.
Hadn't been for 2 days.
364 days. Breech will be 40 again. All right, we'll be back tomorrow night. That feels like Groundhog Day to recap the Monday night Super Wildcard Weekend action, and that's as we mentioned, Steelers Bills, Eagles Bucks. So check back for that. In the meantime, for Willie Bear Brinson and for Johnny Boy Breech, I'm Ryan Wilson, and thanks to producer Harry as always, and thanks to you guys who watch and listen and comment. We will see you guys in 22-ish hours.